Today is day 4 for the Come Follow Me study for this week, July 27th through August 2nd. I am doing a great work. Ezra 1, 3 through 7, and Nehemiah 2, 4 through 6, and 8. Thursday, July 30th, 2026, Nehemiah 2 and 4. The Book of Nehemiah. The Book of Nehemiah is the continuation of the account that begins in the Book of Ezra. The Book of Ezra recounts two great migrations of Jews back home, the first under Zerubbabel and the second under Ezra. But there is still a great group of Jews who live east of the Euphrates River in the Persian Empire. Nehemiah is one of those Jews. He and many thousands continued to identify as Jews culturally and religiously. They call Jerusalem home, but have either chosen not to or have been unable to return. The situation in Jerusalem is tense. The Jews who have resettled and rebuilt the temple are a small group. The Samaritan nations around them are highly suspicious and obstructionist. For centuries, Jerusalem survived in spite of being surrounded by more powerful nations. They did so primarily because of protection from God, but also because of the strength and size of the walls surrounding the city. The walls are in great despair, destroyed by the Babylonians over a century before the days of Nehemiah. Little is known about the background of Nehemiah except that he was a Jew born while the Jews were in exile. His age is not given, but it is likely that he was born after Cyrus had decreed the Jews could return to their homeland. As was explained in Notes and Commentary on Ezra and Enrichment J, only a small number of the Jews in exile chose to return. Nehemiah's family must have been one of those that did not. They were probably of some influence, since Nehemiah was the cupbearer to King Artaxerxes. Assassination was a constant threat to a king, and poisoned food or drink was one of the most effective ways to accomplish it. The cupbearer, the one who ensured that the king's food and drink were safe, was in a position of great trust and responsibility. Even though he was in Persia, enjoying power and importance, Nehemiah had not forgotten his people and homeland. When he heard of their sad condition, he fasted and prayed for his people. After learning that the walls of Jerusalem had still not been rebuilt, Nehemiah asked the king for permission to return to Jerusalem to rebuild them. The king granted Nehemiah's request and provided him with needed supplies. Under Nehemiah's direction, the walls of Jerusalem were rebuilt in about 444 BC. The books of Nehemiah can be outlined as follows: Nehemiah 1 through 6, the rebuilding of Jerusalem's walls; Nehemiah 7 through 13, the restoration of the community in Jerusalem and dedication of the walls. Nehemiah, builder of walls and wills. Nehemiah stands out as one of the noble men in the Old Testament. As he fulfilled a necessary mission in his day, he demonstrated the highest level of dedication and courage, both in the practical manner of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem and also in the spiritual matter of rebuilding the religious life of his people. The book of Nehemiah carries the history of the Jewish people down to a later date than any other of the avowedly historical works in the canon of the Old Testament. Its interest is manifold, since it describes not only the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem, but the reconstruction of the Jewish ecclesiastical organization, and as an authority for the events it relates, is first-rate, since it is largely based upon contemporary materials, and its value is augmented by its vivid portrayal of the noble character of Nehemiah himself. His career presents an exceptional combination of strong self-reliance with humble trust in God, of penetrating shrewdness with perfect simplicity of purpose, a persistent prayerfulness with the most energetic activity, and for religious faith and practical sagacity, he stands conspicuous against the illustrious personages of the Bible. Nehemiah 1. Nehemiah mourns, fasts, and prays for the Jews in Jerusalem. Nehemiah 2. Artaxerxes sends Nehemiah to Jerusalem. Rebuilding Jerusalem's walls was essential for safeguarding the city against potential attackers and military threats. It also helped reestablish Jerusalem's religious, economic, and political influence in the region. Many neighbors in the surrounding area opposed Nehemiah's project because he feared the impact it would have on their power and control. Despite many attempts by Nehemiah's enemies to hinder the work, Nehemiah and his group finished rebuilding the walls in only 52 days. The speed and quality of the work were so remarkable that even their adversaries admitted that this work was wrought of God. Nehemiah 6:1-8. And it came to pass in the month Nisan, in the 20th year of Artaxerxes the king, that wine was before him, and I took up the wine and gave it unto the king. Now I had not been beforetime sad of his presence. Wherefore the king said unto me, Why is thy countenance sad, seeing thou art not sick? This is something else but sorrow of heart. Then I was very sore afraid, and said unto the king, Let the king live forever. Why should not my countenance be sad, when the city, the place of my father's sepulchres, lieth waste, and the gates thereof are consumed with fire? Then the king said unto me, For what dost thou make request? So I prayed to the God of heaven. And I said unto the king, If it please the king, and if thy servant have found favor in thy sight, that thou wouldest send me unto Judah, unto the city of my father's sepulchres, that I may build it. And the king said unto me, the queen also sitting by him, For how long shall thy journey be? And when wilt thou return? So it pleased the king to send me, and I sent him a time. Moreover, I said unto the king, If it please the king, let letters be given me to the governors beyond the river, or on the west side of the Euphrates River, that they may convey me over till I come into Judah. And a letter unto Asaph, the keeper of the king's forest, that he may give me timber to make beams for the gates of the palace, which appertained to the house, and for the wall of the city, and for the house that I shall enter into. And the king granted me according to the good hand of my God upon me. The favor in which Nehemiah was held by King Artaxerxes is evident not only in that he granted him permission to return, but also in that he gave him guards, an escort, and a safe conduct through the lands on his return to Judah beyond the river, or west of the Euphrates. The king also granted him permission to use timber from the royal forest to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem as well as the gates and his own house. Nehemiah 2:9-10. Now I came to the governors beyond the river, and gave them the king's letters. Now the king had sent captains of the army and horsemen with me. Then Sanballat the Horonite, and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, heard of it. It grieved them exceedingly that there was come a man to seek the welfare of the children of Israel. Sanballat, the governor of Samaria, and the governors of other nearby areas opposed the plans of the Jews of Jerusalem and resented the protection given them by the Persian king. A deep bitterness had developed between the Samaritans and the Jews who had returned with Zerubbabel. For Nehemiah to return with full power from the emperor to refortify Jerusalem was a great setback for the Samaritans, and they openly opposed it. Sanballat of Samaria led this group and made it necessary for Nehemiah to arm those who worked on the walls of Jerusalem. Tobiah was an Ammonite official and an influential member of the community in Jerusalem. These men were threatened by Nehemiah's arrival because they were worried that their influential positions might be compromised. Nehemiah 2:11. So I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. Sanballat and others opposed Nehemiah in rebuilding the walls and gates of Jerusalem. Nehemiah 2:12-16. And I arose in the night, I and some few men with me. Neither told I any man what my God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem. Neither was there any beast with me, save the beast that I rode upon. And I went out by night by the gate of the valley, or the name of a gate in the wall of Jerusalem, approximately modern Joppa Gate, even before the Dragon Wall, or Fountain of the Jackals, a well located near Jerusalem, and to the Dung Port, or another gate in the wall of Jerusalem at approximately the junction of Hinnom and Tyro-Poion valleys, and viewed the walls of Jerusalem, which were broken down, and the gates thereof were consumed with fire. Then I went on to the gate of the fountain, perhaps a gate near En Rogel. The king's pool could be Siloam, and to the king's pool, but there was no place for the beast that was under me to pass. Then went I up in the night by the brook, and viewed the wall, and turned back, and entered by the gate of the valley, and so returned. And the rulers knew not whither I went, or what I did, neither had I as yet told it to the Jews, nor to the priests, nor to the nobles, nor to the rulers, nor to the rest that did the work. Nehemiah wrote in such detail about his night reconnaissance and the later reconstruction of the walls of Jerusalem that we have a good idea of the actual sites of much that he reported. The accompanying map shows the estimated locations. Nehemiah 2:17 through 18. Then said I unto them, Ye see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lieth waste, and the gates thereof are burned with fire. Come, and let us build up the wall of Jerusalem, that we be no more a reproach. When I told them of the hand of my God, which was good upon me, as also the king's words, that he had spoken unto me, and they said, Let us rise up and build. So they strengthened their hands for this good work. What was God's work for Nehemiah? What is God's work for me? Nehemiah 2:19. But when Sanballat the Horonite, and Tobiah the servant, the Ammonite, and Geshem the Arabian heard it, they laughed us to scorn, and despised us, and said, What is this thing that ye do? Will you rebel against the king? What is the opposition Nehemiah faced? What opposition do I face? Nehemiah 2:20. Then answered I them, and said unto them, The God of heaven, he will prosper us. Therefore we his servants will arise and build. But ye have no portion, nor right, nor memorial in Jerusalem. John 10. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. This passage applies perfectly to the Samaritans of Nehemiah's day. They were thieves and robbers trying to steal the blessings of the covenant. The same idea is reflected in the Master's declaration to the Samaritan woman at Jacob's well. John 4. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. How did Nehemiah respond? How can I respond? Nehemiah 3. The names and order of those who helped to build the walls and gates of Jerusalem are listed. Nehemiah 4. The Jews' enemies seek to prevent them from rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. Nehemiah 4, 1 through 3. But it came to pass that when Sanballat heard that we builded the wall, he was wroth, and took great indignation, and mocked the Jews. And he spake before his brethren and the army of Samaria, and said, What do these feeble Jews? Will they fortify themselves? Will they sacrifice? Will they make an end in a day? Will they revive the stones out of the heaps of the rubbish which are burned? Now Tobiah the Ammonite was with him, and he said, Even that which they build, if a fox go up, he shall even break down their stone wall. Ether 12. Fools mock, but they shall mourn. The Samaritans and Ammonites are doing everything they can to stop the Jews. Taunting and making fun often work to take the wind out of the sails of the righteous. They were just as those in Lehi's dream. 1 Nephi 8. I also cast my eyes round about, and beheld a great and spacious building, and it stood as it were in the air, high above the earth. And it was filled with people, both old and young, both male and female. And their manner of dress was exceedingly fine, and they were in the attitude of mocking and pointing their fingers towards those who had come at and were partaking of the fruit. In Lehi's dream, the taunting worked. Some fell away after tasting of the fruit of the tree. 1 Nephi 8, because of those that were scoffing at them. Such is the goal of Sanballat and Tobiah. What is the opposition Nehemiah faced? What opposition do I face? Nehemiah 4, 4 through 6. Hear, O our God, for we are despised, and turn their reproach upon their own head, and give them for a prey in the land of captivity, and cover not their iniquity, and let not their sin be blotted out from before thee. for they have provoked thee to anger before the builders. So build we the wall, and all the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. What does it mean to have a mind to work in the service of the Savior? What does it mean to have the good hand of God upon you as you do his work? How have you seen his hand in your efforts to serve him? Nehemiah 4:7-8. But it came to pass that when Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arabians and the Ammonites and the Ashdodites heard that the walls of Jerusalem were made up and that the breaches began to be stopped, then they were very wroth, and conspired all of them together to come up and fight against Jerusalem and to hinder it. Opposition Nehemiah faced. Opposition I face. Nehemiah 4:9. Nevertheless, we made our prayer unto our God, and set a watch against them day and night because of them. Elder Boyd K. Packer said, think carefully upon that. They made a prayer and set a watch, and proceeded with their work. How did Nehemiah respond? How can I respond? Nehemiah 4:10-12. And Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. And our adversary said, they shall not know, neither see, till we come in the midst among them, and slay them, and cause the work to cease. And it came to pass that when the Jews which dwelt by them came, they said unto us 10 times, from all places whence ye shall return unto us, they will be upon you. Nehemiah arms the laborers and keeps the work progressing. Nehemiah 4:13-14. Therefore set I in the lower places behind the wall, and on the higher places I even set the people after their families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and rose up, and said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, be not ye afraid of them. Remember the Lord, which is great and terrible, or feared, or revered. And fight for your brethren, your sons, and your daughters, your wives, and your houses. Alma 46. In memory of our God, our religion, and freedom, and our peace, our wives, and our children. Nehemiah 4:15-17. And it came to pass, when our enemies heard that it was known unto us, and God had brought their counsel to naught, that we returned all of us to the wall, every one unto his work. And it came to pass from that time forth, that the half of my servants wrought in the work, and the other half of them held both the spears, the shields, and the bows, habergeons, probably armor of tough leather, and the rulers were behind all the houses of Judah. They which builded on the wall, and they that bare burdens, with those that laded, every one with one of his hands wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. The names of the families assigned to repair the walls and gates are given in Nehemiah 3, but the leaders of the surrounding communities were afraid that the Jews were fortifying Jerusalem and resuming their former religious practices. Sanballat, the governor of Samaria, was especially angry, but the plan they laid to attack and prevent the repair of the walls, now about halfway up, was frustrated by Nehemiah, who had those who guarded and those who labored arm themselves by day and by night. Nehemiah's encouragement to the Jews to defend their families and homes is similar to the charge Moroni gave in the Book of Mormon. Members of the church earlier in this dispensation experienced similar opposition. Consider what President George Q. Cannon, who was a member of the First Presidency, said of the persecution in Utah around 1884. It is very encouraging to think that in the midst of the assaults which were being made upon the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the threats that are in circulation concerning us and our future fate, there is faith enough found in the midst of the people to pursue, without discouragement and without cessation, the great work which we feel that our Father has laid upon us. We have not been situated as we were in Nauvoo, when we finished our temple there, for then the workmen who labored upon it were like the Jews in the days of Nehemiah, when they undertook to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem and had to labor a portion of the time at least, and a great portion of it too, with their instruments of labor in one hand and weapons to defend themselves in the other. We were surrounded by mobs and living in a constant state, it may be said, of fear, because of the threats which were made and the combinations which were formed, and the attacks upon our outlying settlements, and the burning of houses, and the destruction of grain, and the shooting down of cattle, and in the driving out of the people from their homes. Elder George Buchanan said the temple at Nauvoo, Illinois, was the finest building then in the Western country, and the admiration of everybody. The saints erected it in the midst of poverty, destitution, sickness, death, and I may say, with the sword or rifle in one hand, and the trowel in the other, their enemies surrounding them on every hand. They had slain Joseph and Hiram, and attempted to destroy others of the servants of God, and they were continually burning and destroying the houses and property of the saints, and were determined to expel them from the state. But in the midst of these tribulations, the saints continued their labors until that temple was roofed in, and until within its walls they could attend to the ordinances for the living and the dead. President Brigham Young said, by the aid of sword in one hand and trowel and hammer in the other, with firearms at hand and a strong band of police and the blessings of heaven, the saints, through hunger and thirst and weariness and watchings and prayings, so far completed the temple, despite the devices of the mob, that many received a small portion of their endowment, but we know of no one who received it in its fullness. And then, to save the lives of all the saints from cruel murder, we removed westward, and being led by the all-searching eye of the great Jehovah, we arrived at this place. Nehemiah 4:18-23. For the builders, every one had his sword girded by his side, and so builded. And he that sounded the trumpet was by me. And I said unto the nobles, and to the rulers, and to the rest of the people, the work is great and large, and we are separated upon the wall, one far from another. In what place, therefore, ye hear the sound of the trumpet, resort ye thither unto us, our God shall fight for us. So we labored in the work, and half of them held the spears from the rising of the morning till the stars appeared. Likewise, at the same time said I unto the people, let every one with his servant lodge within Jerusalem, that in the night they may be a guard to us, and labor on the day. So neither I, nor my brethren, nor my servants, nor the men of the guard which followed me, none of us put off our clothes, saving that every one put them off for washing.